That was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Qualified 33rd. What'd I get? Anyone know where I finished?
32nd.
32nd? Woo! One position. How many times have I spin out?
4.
4 times. You had that locked in, huh, bud? You knew that.
I think only one fall.
But did I ruin anyone's day besides my own?
No.
No, I did not.
He meant to make a statement, just not the one people predicted. When Kyle Petty slammed Cleetus McFarland ahead of his debut, it felt like a judgment passed. No skill, no business, no shot. Yet after a handful of chaotic laps, that very critique began falling apart before everyone's eyes. So what truly unfolded on that track to make a NASCAR icon reconsider? And did Cleetus genuinely gain respect, or merely last long enough to quiet the doubters?
Cleetus, we watched it unfold for you, and I heard you say, I blew it. What a rookie mistake. It'll still be a great finish for you tonight. How will you digest it?
Yeah, I want to start off by apologizing to the team that I took out. I think it was several.
Nobody anticipated the loudest noise at Rockingham would come from a man swallowing his own pride. Yet that's exactly what occurred when Kyle Petty shifted from guarding the sport to nearly cheering a YouTuber who was meant to humiliate himself.
Top 5 in ARCA right here. What clicked for you today, and ultimately, what a showing for that team?
Honestly, I just went out there and turned left for Greg Biffle. Okay, that's what I was doing. I had more confidence today than I've ever had in a stock car. Even though I got the world against me, I got all these people here rooting for me, and I don't know, I was feeling good. The kinetic, Rhett Jones racing 30, just turning so good. I mean, I had the leaders in my sight the whole time. I was a little off pace, but like top 4, I can't believe it.
The same voice that cautioned the garage about viral sensations now carried the tone of a man witnessing his own forecast unravel in real time. And the cause of that shock sits squarely behind the wheel of a stock car piloted by Cleetus McFarland.
You listen to the outside noise of whether he should be allowed to race, should he not be allowed to race. Just because do you want to know? Do you want to hear what people are saying? Or do you feel like it's better for you to ignore that?
I mean, Bob, I think you know at this point that I'm pretty in tune with what's going on in the social media world. Like, this is my job. My job is probably more similar to yours than closer to the drivers.
What makes this story captivating isn't merely the performance, because the performance itself was wild, erratic, and occasionally almost reckless. But the way anticipation was set so high, so absolute, that even just finishing began to feel like a declaration. Before a single lap was completed, the storyline had already been etched in permanent ink.
Man, I made a mistake. You know when I said that I'm going to go to Cleetus's Crown Vic race? Remember I said that August 14th? I wasn't thinking very well. I was not thinking very well. Guess what is on August 14th? That's our bus, by the way. What is on August 14th? What is the mistake that I made? That's right. August 14th is Big Brother Rusty Wallace's NASCAR Foundation motorcycle ride.
This seemed like yet another case of modern NASCAR bending over backward for attention, trading merit for clicks, and letting a content creator step into a race car for a weekend. That idea didn't appear out of thin air, and it certainly didn't go unnoticed. Kyle Petty didn't merely criticize the choice, he unleashed on it. He framed it as a threat to the sport's integrity, insisting NASCAR isn't meant to be a playground for personalities who built followings outside the traditional ladder. His frustration revealed a deeper fear, that the system was being diluted, that years of climbing lower series could be skipped if stock car seasoning. He had a handful of ARCA starts, one truck race that ended in a spin, and a fan base capable of filling grandstands but not piloting the car. When Richard Childress Racing gave him a chance, it felt less like a traditional development step and more like a calculated gamble, mixing marketing with motorsports. That's why Rockingham seemed less like a race weekend and more like a live experiment, Would critics be proven right in dramatic fashion, or would something unexpected unfold?
Guy, that's how I got in this position. So I see it a lot. And, closer to Daytona when I had the big screw up in the truck, I was feeling a little down on myself about that. At this point, the record is so broken of people still talking about it. I don't care as much. At the end of the day, all these guys can say whatever they want about me. But if Richard Childress called them and said, hey, you want to come drive our car? All of them would have taken that opportunity too. And if NASCAR is letting me do it, I'm in. I'm here. No one can save me but myself at this point. Once I get on that track on Saturday, it's up to me. They can complain as much as they'd like, but it's happening.
The first crack in the story came sooner than most anticipated, and it did not appear in the spotlight event. In the RCA Menards Series East race, McFarland quietly assembled a performance that made people pause before launching their next criticism. He finished 4th, which was not only respectable, it marked his best result in a NASCAR-sanctioned race. It was the kind of effort that did not shout brilliance, but hinted at competence. And sometimes that is more threatening to a narrative than outright failure. Suddenly, the discussion had to pivot. Had he floundered in that first race, the second would have felt like a ticking clock toward disaster. Instead, there was just enough proof to suggest he might not entirely collapse. It was guidance that feels underwhelming until you realize how few drivers actually follow it under pressure. And the pressure came immediately. When the green flag dropped in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race, McFarland landed in the exact scenario critics dreaded. He qualified deep in the field, and within the opening laps made an aggressive move that could have ended his day instantly. He dove into a 3-wide battle, lost control, and somehow saved the car in a moment that was equally impressive and concerning. It was a perfect snapshot of the dilemma, raw instinct combined with risky execution.
Cleetus qualified 35th, finished 32nd. NASCAR's hard, isn't it?
Looks like it, yeah. Harder than ARCA.
Yeah, I think everybody wins. That was bad. That was bad. A little harder than ARCA. Well, listen, ARCA is a starter series, but Cleetus did good. He did good, and everybody wins on this, John, and here's why. Because NASCAR proved him, but it showed everyone how hard NASCAR.
From that moment forward, the race became less about position and more about endurance. Every lap felt like a challenge he was barely overcoming, sometimes only by fractions. At one stage, he dodged a spinning car by dropping low at the final possible second, weaving through chaos in a manner that seemed more luck than skill. The margins were razor thin, and the stakes were always looming. The race itself offered no breaks. He fell laps behind, struggled to maintain pace, received a pit road speeding penalty. The race. He completed all 250 laps. He did not wreck the car. He did not take out other drivers. He did not become the unpredictable hazard everyone fears from a rookie. And that is where the narrative shifts. The expectation wasn't that he would win or even compete, but that he might fail in ways that justified criticism. Instead, he accomplished the one thing that forced reconsideration. He endured. When the checkered flag fell, the box score looked harsh. A finish deep in the field, multiple laps down, and a race full of mistakes rarely earns respect. But context reshapes everything, and here, it transformed a mediocre result into a meaningful one. Kyle Petty sensed that change as it happened.
Look what happened to Cleetus. He did okay, but Cleetus got out of the car, John, and he said, "Oh my God, this is the hardest thing I've ever done." Kid was staring at me. Not every day somebody flips a recording on. Good job to NASCAR. Good job to Cleetus. All's well.
After the race, the same voice that had drawn a hard line suddenly softened, then shifted entirely. He acknowledged that if you criticize someone, you also have to recognize when they rise to the occasion. He admitted that McFarland did what was necessary, ran every lap, stayed out of major trouble, and proved he belonged on the track, at least for that day. The tone was not just different, it was almost unrecognizable compared to the pre-race comments. Then came the line that summed it all up. Petty essentially admitted that he had been smacked by the performance, that his earlier stance had been challenged in a way he did not anticipate. In NASCAR terms, that is as close as it gets to, He spoke about learning from more experienced drivers, seeing how differently they approach corners, and realizing just how far he still had to go. It sounded less like a victory speech and more like a student describing his first brutal lesson. That mindset did not go unnoticed. Justin Allgaier, a series champion with every reason to be wary of newcomers, praised the effort and emphasized that McFarland handled a difficult situation the right way.
I'm not sure how much you were around him today, but how do you think Cleetus did in his debut from your perspective?
Oh, I thought Cleetus did a great job. You know, he did a really good job this morning in the ARC race and come home with a top 5, and you know, obviously was just trying to figure out where he needed to be at today. And he had the one spin out before. I don't know what happened there, but look, man, I don't envy that position at all. I know that today had to be really tough on him, and especially with kind of some of the social media stuff that he's had going against him the last few weeks. So I was proud of him for putting the effort in and trying to make sure that he was where he needed to be at to go have a solid day.
Mark Martin, known for his measured opinions, acknowledged the challenge of Rockingham and gave credit simply for surviving a track that exposes inexperience quickly and brutally. Even within NASCAR itself, the reaction leaned toward cautious approval. There was no rush to label him the next big thing, but there was recognition that he had cleared the first and most critical hurdle. And that brings the focus back to the bigger question hanging over the weekend from the start. What exactly is the standard? If the already talk about future races, including the high-speed chaos of Talladega, though even his own team at Richard Childress Racing has hinted that the process may need another step before tackling something so demanding. And that caution feels earned. Rockingham showed he can survive, learn, and handle the pressure of being watched and judged from every angle. It also demonstrated that the gap between surviving and competing remains very real. That balance is what makes the next decision so crucial. Had he completely failed, the path forward would be obvious. Had he stunned everyone with a top finish, the pressure to fast-track him would be immense. Instead, he landed in the most complex outcome possible, one that sparks debate rather than ending it.
I feel absolutely incredible. Once again, got a little greedy. Hate to do that on Easter weekend, but you know what? I thought the guy knew I was there. Is the car messed up? Well then, I'm happy, real happy. My boy Clee got 4th place. Hey man, how dare anybody say we weren't born to be NASCAR drivers? All right, we're up here top 5 and top 10 in Rockingham with a blown tire. It got bad there at the end, last 2 or 3 laps. I'm like, I don't know, guys. They said 2 more laps.
Which is exactly why this story isn't fading anytime soon. Because the most fascinating part isn't the finishing position or even the apology. It is the shift in perception. A weekend that began with firm rejection ended with reluctant respect. And that kind of reversal does not come easily in a sport built on tradition and skepticism. So now the question hangs in the air louder than any engine at Rockingham. Was this the start of a legitimate impressive in its own right, but repeating that composure under even higher pressure is an entirely different challenge, especially when the spotlight has doubled and expectations quietly shift from curiosity to scrutiny? The moment Cleetus McFarland crossed the line at Rockingham, the narrative stopped being about whether he belonged on the track at all and started being about whether he could justify staying there. That may sound like a subtle distinction, but in NASCAR terms, it is enormous. One race can be dismissed as an experiment, 2 or 3 start to form a pattern. And patterns are what define careers in this sport.
I don't know how many races he's run. Denny Hamlin ran 10,000 before he got here, right? So I don't know if Cleetus has run 10 or not, but you know, there's definitely a need to having ample experience of just, my son's probably run more races than he has, and he's 10 years old. You know what I mean? So I don't think that sets well with many of us.
What makes this situation even more volatile is the type of track now being whispered into the conversation. Talladega is not just another race. It is a place where even seasoned veterans tread carefully, where margins vanish, and where a single mistake can trigger a chain reaction that takes out half the field. Suggesting it as the next step feels almost ironic after a debut defined by survival, because Talladega does not reward endurance in a slow, methodical way. It demands awareness at a level that cannot be faked. And yet, McFarland's own confidence has not cooled. If anything, it carries a slightly playful edge, as if he fully grasps the chaos surrounding his presence and chooses to lean into it rather than shrink from it. That mindset is part of what got him here, but it is also what will be tested the hardest going forward. Confidence is an asset until it tips into overreach, and Rockingham already offered glimpses of how thin that line can be. What complicates matters further is the garage's reaction. Drivers like Justin Allgaier and legends like Mark Martin did not just offer polite approval, they gave genuine credit, and that matters more than any online reaction ever could. Respect from within the sport is earned in ways that cannot be manufactured, and once it starts appearing, it reshapes how future performances are judged.
Look, man, I can't answer that because I think there's a couple that we race with weekly that I don't know that I'd want to drop with at Talladega. So, here's the thing. I think over the last month or so, with what Cleetus has learned and what he's being inside the garage and seeing it from a different light than maybe what he ever has, I've really been interested to watch his comments and see them kind of progress over the course of the last month. And I think he really, I don't know if he didn't respect it when he started, because that's not the right answer, but I think he respects the amount of time and work that goes into this a lot more now than he did before.
At the same time, that respect comes with an unspoken condition. It is not permanent. It must be maintained, reinforced, and proven again under different circumstances. One clean finish does not guarantee the next, and in a field this competitive, patience can vanish quickly if mistakes pile up. Even Kyle Petty, who already made his public reversal, is not suddenly going to overlook future missteps. If anything, the bar has been raised. The initial criticism rested on the idea that McFarland did not belong. Now that he has shown he can at least handle the basics, the scrutiny will evolve. It will become more detailed, more specific, and less forgiving. That is the trade-off of shifting perception. Once people stop questioning your presence, they start evaluating your performance. And that is where the story becomes genuinely fascinating, because it is no longer about a field tightens, and decisions must be made in fractions of a second. Rockingham proved he could endure the chaos. The next race, wherever it happens, will ask a different question. Can he control it? Surviving once earns attention, but controlling the race, even in small moments, is what earns longevity. And in a sport that rarely hands out second chances without reason, that distinction may end up being the only thing that matters.